It is time. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you've clicked on this video, I'm assuming you already know what we're going to be talking about today, but it is finally time for me to be reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, also known as ACOWAR. War in the title scares me. We're going to be moving on from that, aren't we? I have been reading this series for the first time over the past month and a half, and over the next 2 weeks you're going to get to see me read this book and then the fourth one for the very first time. I am having some mixed reactions to them. You can go watch video 1 and video 2 on my channel already and see what I thought about both of them. I'm very excited. There are 3 things you need to know before we get going into this video really quickly. If you haven't seen those other videos, this is just kind of letting you know the same introduction that I do with them. So first off, there will be spoilers for this book and book 1 and book 2. So if you don't want any spoilers for this series, turn away now. This was dumb for you to click on. Second, I have already looked up spoilers for this book. I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to be reading these books, and then I changed my mind because of some friends, and so now I'm reading them, but unfortunately I do already know how the book ends. Yes, I know about who dies. Third thing you need to know is, yes, I understand that's not how his name is said. Am I ever going to stop saying Rysand? No, don't tell me to. It's gonna be Rysand for the rest of my life. The final thing I need to do in this introductory clip is at the beginning of every single other video, I have made a prediction as to what I thought I was gonna rate the book so that later when I finish it, I can look back and see if I was actually accurate. So after finishing book 1, I did have to change my opinion about book 2 and book 3. And then after finishing book 2, I really changed my opinion about book 3. Originally, before I had read any of these books, I thought that I was going to rate this book 3 out of 5 stars. I thought that this was going to be my least favorite because I tend to not enjoy finales in series. Where I am at after having finished the other 2, I think I'm gonna like this a little bit more than I was originally thinking. So I am going to predict right now that I will rate this book 4 stars. I won't be surprised if it's a 3.5, but I'm predicting a 4-star read. I guess there is one more thing. That wasn't the finale. The final thing that we need to discuss is going to be my tabbing system. I am once again going to be doing my 3-color tabbing system, which changes the colors for every single book, but is pretty simple once you break it down. For this book, I am going to do purple as my love, pink as important, and yellow as hate. If you want to know more information about that, you can go watch the previous 2 videos. I go way more in depth there. Let's take this dust jacket off. Usually they slide a lot easier than that. Okay, this book doesn't want to be naked. I should probably turn the camera off. It's very shy. Yesterday ended up being a completely really weird day for me. All good news. If you're super curious about what's going on in my personal life, you can go watch my vlog from last week. I talk about it at the end of the week, but I was able to start this book and I made it 190 pages into it. My goal was 150 yesterday, and the 190 is from yesterday and today. So my goal for today is 300. So I got some reading to do. I have been tabbing and I definitely have some things to say about this book already. First off, I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if I would say I'm enjoying it as much as I enjoyed book 2, but I'm really enjoying myself. There are some things I don't like about it. There are some things I like about it. There are some things that I'm wondering are going to be foreshadowing to later on in the book. First things up, I'm really loving Feyre. Like, Feyre in book 2 was awesome, and I'm loving this whole entire like chaotic energy that she has in this book, where she's just not taking any crap from anyone and she is just doing what she needs to do. I mean, I cannot blame her through all of the atrocities that she's been through to become this kind of person. For instance, there were these moments where she was convincing Tamlin that her and Lucien were an item, and I was just like, heck yeah, girl. Like, I thought she was gonna go back to the Spring Court and just kind of like maybe pick up some intel, maybe like find out some information, lay low until Rysand could rescue her. But no, she not only rescued herself, but she also caused utter chaos in all of the land, and it was great. There was this moment where Ianthe was supposed to have this like ritual where she was supposed to be like blessed by the sun and everything, and Feyre like rigged it so that it looked like she was getting blessed by the sun instead, and it was such a beautiful moment. Like, I want to draw it. It was so good. Beyond that, most of my hate moments honestly are Tamlin. I think there were a few other ones, like for instance when the twins showed up and they were like, we're just gonna go share a bedroom together. I was like, Is that because you're gonna watch each other's backs, or is that because you guys are into incest? I'm really not sure, and I'm kind of confused. I also think that, I know for a fact I was really pissed at Lucien at the end of book 2, but I think that in this book I've forgiven him a little bit. He's at least respecting Elaine's growth and what she needs to get over what's going on. He's giving her space so far, you know, where I'm at so far, but he also still obviously cares about her and Feyre, and he is starting to actually make decisions where he's showing that he has a backbone and that he's not just Tamlin's pet. And I really appreciate that growth too, because it's what I've been wanting from him from book 1. I love him as a character, but I just needed him to not be so infatuated, obsessed, following Tamlin around no matter what, and he's finally doing it. I think that there's some foreshadowing that Lucien is going to actually become the High Lord of the Autumn Court. I've seen a few instances where different characters have said something about it, and I really want it to happen. I feel like he would be a great High Lord just because he doesn't necessarily want the title, but he really would care for his people and do the best for them. And if he could get his dad and brothers out of the way, like, he would genuinely do some good for them. And I'm excited to hopefully see that. It's a prediction I'm making. Rysand has also just been really stepping it up in this book with his respect for Feyre. Like, there was this moment where it was after they had like reunited, and he said to her that he missed her, and she's like, oh, of course you missed this. And he's like, yeah, no, I missed, what do you say? I missed you every second, every breath, not just this, but talking to you, laughing with you. I missed having you in my bed, but missed having you as my friend even more. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, that was really awesome. And there have been a few other moments similar to that where he has just been like such a great guy to her, and I really appreciate that. I'm also not convinced that the twins are actually dead. I was talking about it with a friend, and she brought up that the cauldron brought Jurian back to life, but then she's also like, well, Jurian's soul was still alive. But then later in the book, they mentioned that Miriam died and she was brought back to life by this thing that's related to the cauldron. That's literally how they described it. An object made by the cauldron itself, legend claimed, and that's the only name they have for it right now. So I'm kind of convinced that the twins aren't dead, that they're going to be coming back and they're going to be haunting us. Maybe even Amaranthe, but I don't totally know if she'll be back because she's been dead for a bit now. But honestly, if she came back at this point, I'd kind of be let down because I feel like she was just kind of a one and done villain, whereas the twins, like, this is their book to shine, and they didn't even get 100 pages of being villainous before they were killed off, and they were such like weird and creepy villains that I wanted to see more of them. I also was really shocked by Feyre's reconnection with her sisters. I thought it was going to go a lot differently. Like, I understand that they have been through literal torture now and that they are dealing with a lot of things, but I guess I assumed that even after all of this that they would still be kind of glad to see Feyre back. And when she came back, neither of them were really happy to see her. Nesta was almost kind of angry, like, not necessarily that Feyre was back, but just angry in general, which is a fair emotion for her to feel. And Elaine is just kind of empty inside and didn't really respond much to anything. I know that there's gonna be some growth there, and there's gonna be some changes there, and they're gonna do their thing and go through what they need to go through. But I am loving their relationship, and I'm loving watching all of them heal together and get through it. And even though like right now is the very beginning of that healing process, I know that things are going to happen with that, and I'm looking forward to knowing more about it. And I saw some spoilers online about the fact that Elaine and Azrael are going to become like good friends. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. I didn't know that I wanted the two of them to be friends with each other, but now that I've heard it, like, all I want is them to be best buds. Like, they are so good for each other. One of the lines that the book had for Elaine that really stood out to me was, Elaine had always been gentle and sweet, and I had considered it a different sort of strength, a better strength, to look at the hardness of the world and choose over and over to love, to be kind. She had been always so full of light. That was really powerful, especially after what we got to see, this like husk of her now. And while I definitely have to say that I don't like Tamlin. I've never liked Tamlin. If you've watched the previous 2 videos, you know that. I'm not a fan of him. I think that he has a lot of issues. And this book goes to show even more of them. Just more furniture that he's destroying, more people that he's hurting. He physically abuses Feyre at one point in this book. He throws, like, was it a table or a chair at her? And Feyre uses it to her advantage, but he is just not a great person to be around. I usually tab a lot of what he says as yellow because yellow is hate and I can't stand what he's saying. Because usually what he's saying is like major red flags, like, okay, back up, this is not good. But there was this moment where him and Feyre were talking. He walks in while she's painting and he says, the painting looks beautiful. And she says, it's nowhere near done. It's still a mess. And then Tamlin said, I think we all are. And I was like, okay, he's at least like accepting the fact that we're growing as people and that we're not stagnant and that we're not stuck where we are. And he's allowing her to do some of the growth and the recovery that she needs. So that's at least good. The only final thing I want to say, and this is just such like a small thing, is the first chapter in the book starts out and it's Rysand's perspective and it's like way in the past. And that's just like a personal pet peeve of mine that I don't like. I don't like when authors have like one chapter out of like in the middle of a series that like isn't following the timeline and isn't from the same POV that we're always getting, and it just kind of annoys me. So I understand why she did it, especially now that I've read more. I see the comparison between the wars that we are facing back in the past and right now, and I see the comparison of Cassian being injured in the past and Cassian being injured in the present, but I think she could have done it a different way. I just don't like those chapters, and I've made that complaint in the last book, and I don't think I made it in the, no, there's not one in the first book, but I made the complaint in the end of book 2 where I was like, why is there just one chapter from Rysand's perspective? It doesn't make any sense to me why you would do that. Like, we could have learned everything that we learned in that chapter from Feyre and it would have been fine. So I am at page 400 now, and even though I've accomplished a lot, I just feel like I don't have anything to update you guys on. In fact, I even contemplated just not updating this video because there's not a lot happening in this book, to be completely honest. Like, up to where we're at now, it's just our main dudes preparing for war, and that's it. I've been tabbing, so I guess we can go through a few of my tabs together, but I'm not hating the book, but I'm still kind of feeling like it's gonna be a 4-star. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm reading, but it's slower than the last few, and I'm not enjoying it as much as I would have if more action scenes were happening. There have been a few. I thought that one of them was going to be really action and then it wasn't, and that was the bone carver scene. We get introduced to the bone carver in the second book, and he's this really interesting character, and he's supposed to come along and help them in this book, and the scene that he was in was like maybe 5 pages and really nothing happened, and there have been 2 of them so far, and both times it's just been really uneventful, and I'm kind of bummed about that. There was this scene though with these 2 guys called the Ravens, and they attacked Feyre and Nesta in the library, and there was this giant like monster creature that came up and like helped them destroy these people, and that was really interesting, but that was like really short, and up until now that's pretty much been it. You know, in the last like 300 pages, that's been pretty much it. The first 100, there was lots of action, I do have to say. Like I said, I'm not disliking the book. It's interesting, but it's a lot of politics. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of backstory. It's a lot of healing, especially on Nesta and Elaine's part. I do feel like Elaine healed super quickly. Basically, she's been just spewing gibberish and not communicating with anyone, and like held up in her room, and they realized after a while, because it takes them 50 billion years to realize something that is super obvious to the reader, that Elaine can see the future, and it's not gibberish, it's the future that she's predicting. And as soon as they like said those words out loud, I don't even think I tabbed it, but it was really dumb. Feyre thought the words like, oh, she's doing so much better now that we know what's wrong with her, and I'm like, you don't just get healed because bippity boppity, I now have a name for what you have. Like, no. There have been some other parts, like Mor is getting super jealous of Nesta, and I think that's dumb because Mor has had 500 years to make a move, and she literally has not made a move in that time. I mean, she literally had sex with Cassian almost 500 years ago, I think it was. And then she like let him go and hasn't paid any attention to him past platonic relationships and hasn't been jealous of anyone else, but for some reason is getting super jealous with Nesta. And I don't like it because it kind of brings in some like woman hate, and I don't personally appreciate that. Rysand is just doing that thing where he kind of starts to be a loner and starts to make decisions for himself and not bring other people into the decision-making process and not letting people know stuff, and kind of like blocking himself off. Like when he went into battle, he blocked himself off from Feyre so she couldn't even like connect with him, and she was getting really worried that he was dead. Duh, I don't blame her. Like they have a bond, they have a connection. He shouldn't cut her off at any point, especially like that. And then he made this decision to like bring in some enemies to like help him pitch an idea, and it was someone that like really upset Mor because they had done something horrible to Mor in her past, and he didn't tell her until like the guy walked into the room and like saw Mor. And I was like, oh, that's an awful way to let her know. Like, you're not gonna sit her down first and be like, hey, literally the person who tormented you for years is gonna be at this meeting. I need you to like know that, and I this person has to be there. There's no way to stop it, but I need you to know beforehand so that you can prepare yourself and so that you can be ready for it. Like, it's just, he's just making some really dumb decisions. Then there's this part where Feyre like enters Lucien's mind when Lucien is interacting with Elaine at one point, and then Feyre goes to Rysand and is like, I feel really bad about what I did. I violated his trust. I violated moral obligation I have to him. And Rysand literally says, if you want to make yourself feel better, Lucien did technically violate the rules we set, so you are entitled to look into his mind if only to ensure the safety of your sister. He crossed the line first. Don't like that. Red flag. Because someone else breaks a rule, you're now allowed to break a rule. Don't like that. Let's pull up some of my tabs for things that I loved, because I'm really enjoying this book, and I feel like right now I'm just talking about the things I don't like. I love every single scene that Azrael is in. Most of these tabs are going to be Azrael being himself. I think he deserves more of this book, and oh my god, I literally two love tabs in a row were just Azrael. One of them was he had a dry and quiet sense of humor, and one of them was when he volunteered to help Elaine. I love that boy. He deserves so much more. I would read an entire series about him. Sarah J. Maas, I would read an entire series about him. Please write an entire series about him. Thank you. The next thing I loved was when Feyre stepped in to protect her sister when the giant like monster thing was coming out of the library, and she like literally got in between them and protected Nesta, and Nesta like saw her in a different light. Amren hunting people for sport, that was fun. Really enjoyed that one. And then this, I tab a lot of like clothing descriptions because I like to have them for later reference. So the way that Nesta and Feyre are dressed up when they're about to go to the meeting with all of the High Lords, I thought was really like a beautifully described scene, so I tabbed that. Here, I'll read you the crown part. My crown is crafted of silver and diamonds, all fashioned into swirls of stars in various phases of the moon. Its arching apex held aloft a crescent moon of solid diamond, flanked by 2 exploding stars, and with the glittering dress from Starfall. It sounds so freaking pretty. I want to draw that so bad, but I've got to like wrap my head around it a little bit better before I do that thing. And I'm a little bit worried because I have 300 pages left, and a lot of that I know is going to be battle, war, and you know, I'm not a huge fan of war books, which is funny because the war is literally in the title. I knew going into this book it wasn't gonna be my favorite in the series, but I wanted some more action, and the only action I'm gonna get is in war. I don't often record with my headphones in, so we're gonna see how well these mics pick up, and if they pick up horribly, I am so sorry. So last time I checked in with you guys, I think I was at page 400, and I'm officially at page 500. So I've made a little bit of progress. I'm still doing my tabbing. It's still going swell. I'm still enjoying the book, but not absolutely in love with it. But something just happened that really made me frustrated with the book. Like, it's just because Sarah J. Maas like doesn't have any
we already know she doesn't have diversity in her cast, but she doesn't have any diversity in how her characters interact with each other. Like, yeah, we already have like every single person couples up with someone by the end, but also like I've just gotten to the point where yet again another villain is not actually a bad guy. He's just a misunderstood person who was fighting for us all along, and I'm so sick and tired of that happening. So I just got to the part where Jurian is like, why didn't you guys help me? Why didn't you read my mind? Why didn't you know that I was like captured and a prisoner this whole entire time and that I was really fighting for you? And I'm like, okay, Rysand was like this in the beginning where we thought he was evil, and no, he was just misunderstood. And then we freaking in this book have Jurian doing it. We also have, I think the guy's name is Hellion, who's the like High Lord of the Day Court, who has done it. And we also had Eris do it, the freaking next in line for the Autumn Court, where like you think he's this evil, awful person who literally beat people, and you find out, no, it wasn't him, it was just his daddy. Oh my god. And now we're kind of doing it with Tamlin, where Tamlin's like, yo, I'm not evil, I just like helped Hybern, and then I've been trying to get out of my deal. I just need your guys' help, and I'm with you. I've been with you this whole entire time. And I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of it. We've also, like, on a smaller scale, Nesta has even done it, where like in the first book we're like, oh, Nesta's kind of like an awful person, but really she's just misunderstood and we should have gotten to know her all along. And I really like Nesta, so I hate even saying that about her. I'm just sick and tired of her doing this. Like, why can't people be evil? Why can't characters be villainous? Why can't they be misunderstood but still bad? Like, why does everyone have to come back to our freaking side in this book? Anyways, if you can tell, I'm having an interesting experience reading this one.
I swear Feyre has one solution to every single problem, and it's, let's call the cereal and it'll get to tell us the truth, and I'll just ask it a bunch of questions. She's literally done it in 3 books now. 3 out of 3 books. Like, do you not know any other options? Anyways, I'm a little annoyed. I actually finished this bad boy a few days ago, and I just have not had the time to come and talk to you about it. But if you couldn't tell from that short introduction, I was let down terribly at the end. So when did I finish this book? I finished this book on Monday, which means that I read it in 4 days, which makes it the fastest I have read any of these books. And I 100% wouldn't have done that if I hadn't gotten the audiobook for it and just kind of put it on while I was doing other things. I don't think I told this video, but I did end up getting the audiobook around the 60% mark and listening to most of the ending, although I did read physically the last 100 pages on my own. So I didn't listen to as much of it as I think I did. Let's talk about the book. This is what the tabs look like here at the end. As you can see, there is a lot of purple, especially in the first 50%, and not as much kind of in these last 100 pages. There's a lot of pink throughout, lots of important things, especially at the end, because there's a lot of setup for what feels like is going to be another book. And then there's a decent amount of yellow. I don't think there's as much yellow as book 1 has, but there might be more actually. There is quite a lot now that I'm looking at this. Yeah, so book 1 is at the bottom, then book 2, then book 3. So comparing all of them, I do think that book 3 has the most yellow. I definitely prefer book 3 to book 1, I will say that. But on that note, I would be willing to reread book 1, whereas I don't think I am ever going to be willing to reread book 2. Maybe one day, maybe if I had the audiobook, but I'm really, really doubting that I will ever reread A Court of Wings and Ruin. It wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible. I don't want you guys to watch this video and be like, oh damn, she hated this book. I hated moments of this book, and we'll talk about those, of course, but I just want to say, like, I didn't hate my entire experience of reading it. I feel like a lot of what I disliked was the second half of the book too. Just, I guess, the setup of book 2. Book 2 was so good, and then it led me to believe that book 3 was going to be just as amazing, and in my mind, it was not. So I ended up rating the book, we'll start here, a 3.75 out of 5 stars. 4 stars. I won't be surprised if it's a 3.5, but I'm predicting a 4-star read. So I wasn't too far off with my 4-star prediction, just slightly off. I enjoy the parts where Feyre was interacting with other people, or of course anytime that anything actually happened in this book, because this book is a lot of people planning a war, talking with each other, not much is really happening. And then even when you get to the big bad battle scene at the end. It wasn't that exciting of one. It wasn't that impactful. The big villain, the big bad boy, Lord Huron, that's not him. That is a musician. That's my favorite musician. Lord Hybern died in like a few pages, and it didn't take that much to bring him down, and it was kind of anticlimactic. And then we had this whole entire reveal that like, oh no, the cauldron got destroyed. And then it was like, okay, well, Feyre's going to piece it back together, but she needs Rysand's help. And so her and Rysand piece it back together, but in the process of piecing it back together, he dies. And it literally happens in like 2 sentences. So he's dead, and then literally 3 paragraphs down, he's alive again. It didn't take that much talking. It didn't take that much convincing. I didn't even get to like sit and stew in my emotional sadness that I was having for this character's death, even though I knew it wasn't a real death. I mean, it's literally just copy and paste from book 1. Like, we already saw Feyre die, and then all of these High Lords bring her back to life. Why did we have to copy the literal exact plot ending of book 1 for this book? I think that it could have just been more impactful if it had done something different. I also complained earlier, I think this was in this video, about how all of the misunderstood or all of the evil characters are just misunderstood characters. There's actually not an evil being in this book. And there are 2, Ianthe and Hybern, and I guess the twins, so we'll say 4. But none of them are really that important to the story. The evil characters that are important to the story are kind of just resolved or shown to be better or shown to be misunderstood or shown to be faking it the entire time. And I'm just sick and tired of that. Like, why can't we have villainous characters? Why? What's the big deal? We can have bad guys. It's fine. The other thing that really pissed me off was that Morgana reveal. So in case you don't know, I mean, you're watching this video, so there's gonna be spoilers anyways. Morgana is revealed to be a lesbian. I don't think they use that word, but she says that she's into women, but that she's pretty much only slept with men most of her life, and she doesn't like sleeping with men. She just does it as a front. And that she tells Feyre because Feyre is like her high lady and she feels like it's time, but she's never told anyone else, and she's not planning on telling anyone else. And that felt like such a cop-out. You're going to have a character who we have seen have sex with multiple men throughout the whole entire series. She is strong, she's powerful, she's out having sex on her own, and it is good for her. You're gonna take that character and tell me that she is a lesbian in her free time. That we have not seen her once sleep with a woman or have any interest in a woman or even look at a woman. In fact, she like glares at Nesta every single time Nesta and Cassian like have even slightly a bit of a moment, which is a lot of my yellow tabs. She got so jealous and it was not a pretty picture. And yet you're gonna tell me, well, this character who we're not gonna see any diversity from is actually into women, but we're not gonna see any diversity, and she's not gonna tell anyone except for our main character. So for us readers, she's a lesbian, but for everyone else in the story, she's not. And I don't want to downplay and say that like just because you're not out of the closet, or just because you're not telling everyone in your life, or just because you've only told one person in your life, or just because you are still sleeping with men or in relationships with men because you can't come to terms or you haven't come to terms yet with your sexuality, like you are still valid and the label still fits you. But the thing is, this is the only diversity we really had in this book. There was a few like really small minor characters who had like one line who were sexually diverse from heterosexual, but other than that, she was it. So you can have characters like this if you're willing to put the time and effort into having other characters represented too. It's a cop-out. It's a flat-out cop-out. Kind of like the line where she kind of indicated that Amryn might be Asian. That was also a cop-out. I'm not having fun talking about this book. So I briefly mentioned the jealousy thing. Yeah, that really bothered me, and I thought it was dumb, and I didn't want to see any more of it. I'm reading through some of my yellow tabs, and it's making me angry, but none of them are making me angry enough to talk to the camera about right now. Oh, and then their dad died. Nesta, Elaine, and Feyre's father is killed, and I just felt like that was also really quick. Like, he didn't play much of a role in the story, and it kind of felt like he was killed off because Sarah J. Maas didn't know what to do with him continuing on in the story, but he wasn't a big enough impact on me that I could feel sad for him. In fact, I very much dislike him. Nesta very much dislikes him, so I felt no emotion at all when he died, and it was so quick and so unemotional that it was just done poorly, in poor taste. Oh, that's the part where freaking Rysand comes back from the dead way too quickly. And then Amryn sacrifices herself to the cauldron, and she gives up her immortal form to become this monster creature. And then when Rysand dies, he brings her back from that and like traps her back in a fae body. And that was really dumb too. Like nothing actually was solid or had meaning or like stuck. And all of these actions and this giant war happened and no one of significance died or had any lasting impact from it. And it just felt like such a weak conclusion. I just really felt like this lacked any depth or any meaning or anything worth talking about at the end. I'm still very excited to read book 4. In fact, you guys are going to be seeing that next week. I got to read that over the next few days and I'm a little bit nervous about that. I just have this gut feeling that she's going to do better than this. Like I hate to say it, but I'm kind of expecting this again, but like with Nesta. I mean, I really liked Feyre. I think that she was a badass and I love to see her struggle and overcome those struggles, and I love to see her move on and just become great. But in this book, her and Rysand just were kind of boring to me and I didn't love it. Let's end on a good note. I'm gonna go to this last purple tab I have here and let's see what it's about, and if it's not worth it, I'll go to another one. So my final purple tab in the book was when Elaine kills the evil dude Hybern, and she just says, Elaine studied the trees ahead, Nesta, did I just stab him? That was good. I really like that Elaine was the one to kill him. I thought it was gonna be Nesta, but Elaine being allowed that was just really great and impactful. And then she had this other moment a little bit earlier in the book, which it's my next purple one, so I'll read it to you as well, where Elaine stepped out of a shadow behind him and rammed a truth teller to the hilt through the back of the king's neck as she snarled in his ear, "Don't you touch my sister." You know, I'm really excited about Nesta having a book. I really hope that Elaine like gets justice and has a book for her too. But I would literally kill for a book about Azrael. And that's where I think I'm gonna leave you all. So thank you for watching. Let me know down below if you're enjoying this series. If not, I'm sure you haven't made it this far at this point because this is 3 videos in and each of the videos are pretty lengthy. If you're not enjoying, I don't know what you're still doing here. You should have stopped 2 videos ago, but I'm enjoying myself even in the moments I don't enjoy myself. And I think I'm going to keep this up in the future where maybe once or twice a month I have just a single book reading vlog on a Monday instead of a weekly reading vlog, because it's fun. So if you have any requests or recommendations for me down below of books you'd like me to read and kind of do this to, then let me know. And if you would like me to go through all these tabs when I finish all 4, possibly 5, I might read Starlight books, then let me know down below. And if you have absolutely made it to the end, I want you to know that I am currently working on some Court and Thorns and Roses merch that'll be going in my Etsy shop, which is linked down below, and my Redbubble, which is also linked down below. So keep your eyes open for that. I'll probably make an announcement on my channel at some point when that happens, but I'll definitely make an announcement on Instagram if you want to follow me there to get like more specific updates. Now that my spiel is done, I appreciate each and every one of you. You're great. Thank you for watching. Like it if you enjoyed the video. I only talked to people who disliked it, but if you liked it, you know what to do, and I appreciate you doing whatever you can, even if it's just watch. I don't remember how my outro goes, but until next time, I will talk to you in the comments. Bye.